This is something I also wanted to ask. In your opinion, with the Michael Waitze Media hat, why should companies get into the podcasting space? Because everybody's getting into it, right? But nobody knows why. You're seeing it on LinkedIn, you're seeing it on YouTube. Look, even real estate agents are doing their own podcasts now, trying to sell real estate, right? So why the podcasting space?
I think in the same way that everybody kind of banded around Clubhouse for about 3 months, everybody wants to do the thing that they feel is trendy. And in the same way that most people were bad at Clubhouse or that bad at some kind of dance or whatever, you know, you can't be good at every trend. Like, you're not going to see me on TikTok.
Not going to do a dance?
No.
Okay, cool.
No. Do you understand what I mean? Like, everybody tries to go with whatever that trend is that's happening at the time. And, you know, it almost feels like the day you buy your first BMW, when you go out on the road, you feel like everybody's driving a BMW. And if you're not, like, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
At some point, how many episodes have you done?
Well, you are number 43.
Right? So you have not stopped.
No.
Most people stop.
I'm staying on my
it's
lane.
hard.
Thanks. Well,
No, because it's hard.
You know what's really amazing about that? You're not the first person to say that. Everybody who asks about this says what you're doing is really hard. But to be honest, right, touch your heart. Do you feel that it's hard?
I think to do it really well, it's really hard. But wait a second. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a different question. Do I love what I do? I wouldn't want to do anything else right now.
Right.
Is it difficult to do well? Yeah. I mean, tell me you haven't. How many recordings do you do today?
I did one. I just did one this morning.
But that's 2 today, right? I'm going to do 4 today. This is my 3rd.
It's great life. Really, really great life.
And this week, I told you, I go Monday to Sunday. Sunday to me is not the beginning of the week. It's the end of the week. Let me just count really quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 recordings this week. But I love doing it.
Right.
But I will say this. When I first started, and I think I said this to you offline, but I'll say it online now. I remember the first few times I had a guest on the show, and I just 100% hoped they didn't show up.
One of those days.
Because it just, because it meant that if they did, I had to succeed. I had to be good at it. And I think at the beginning, when you start doing a podcast, just like anything else, you have to, you know, when you go up a ski lift for the first time, you have to be 100% sure that when your chair gets to the point where you have to get off, you're going to fall and that lift could hit you in the back of the head. But it's the same thing. You can't be afraid of it. I'm not saying that happened to me, but it came close. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because I'm a terrible skier. But again, just like everything else, if you don't give up, you should fundamentally get better at it. I didn't say get good at it, but you'll get better at it.
Indeed.
But it's hard. A lot of people give up. They're like, oh, shit. And no one's listening. Your first 5 episodes, nobody will listen to. Nobody. I mean, look, Uber itself started in a vacuum. Nobody knew what they were working on and nobody cared. Right? So you just have to just keep going.
Right.
And I think that a lot of companies want to be in the audio business, but they don't know how.
True,
right?
true,
It takes
true.
a while to build that expertise, for sure.
Yeah, this is one of the things that companies are trying to do. They do want to do their own podcast, but they don't understand why. It became very much like trend jacking, like what you mentioned. It's just trying to get it out there. Is it more of a marketing gimmick, or do they really have something to say? I know in your experience, companies do approach you to build their podcasts for them, I'm sure.
Yep.
Now, what has been most of the misconceptions that they have with podcasts?
From the company side.
Yep.
So first of all, that it's very easy to do. I've spoken to a couple of companies, and I said to them, you know, how long does it take to produce one episode? And they said, oh, well, if it's a 30-minute show, there's maybe a few minutes before, a few minutes after, put some music around it. I don't know, like an hour.
Huh.
But that's okay. And I said, well, yeah, that's kind of right. but actually 100% wrong. Because if you want to have a thoughtful conversation, you have to have information first. So you have to do research on the person that's going to be your guest. Oh, but I know most of my guests.
Mhm.
Okay. But how well? Right? In other words, do you know where they went to high school?
Mm.
Do you know who their favorite sports team is? Like all these little things, and this gets back to the art of conversation. If you know these little details, you may not have to use them all. But if you can, it just makes the conversation so much better and so much more authentic, right? And so much more natural.
Mm.
And when I explain to people that a normal episode without any, just think about it. We were supposed to record on what day? Wednesday? I can't remember.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Right? So, and we spent an hour on the phone with each other.
Mm-hmm.
That counts as time. Right? That counts as time. Because if you're good at what you do, and you are, you don't just go, oh, darn, it's not working. Bye. Right? You try to fix it. You try to do whatever. You try to, you know what I mean? That takes time. That's empathy. And that's why you're good at what you do. But if you include that along with then all the research you have to do and all the equipment and all the sort of back end stuff, the uploading, all that, it probably takes 8 to 10 hours for an episode.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. The editing, the rendering, everything.
Right. So I did 11 episodes this week.
And you've got editors, right?
No.
You're going to do this all yourself, all by yourself.
So I'm in the process of hiring somebody. It's not hiring somebody, to working in partnership with the team that does what I call audio engineering. It's not editing. But up until now, I've been doing all my own, mostly all of my own editing.
So, okay, so that's why you don't sleep at night. Okay, I get it. That's crazy. You got 11 episodes to, man, and you're still taking your time to do this podcast. I really appreciate it, man.
It's my pleasure.
You know, yeah, and man, the companies right now so they have the misconception that it's fast to do, it's easy. But do you ever ask them back, like, why do you want to do a podcast? Like, are you wasting your own time?
If it's done right, and I'm very committed to this actually. If it's done right, it's not a waste of time. Definitely not. And here's the reason why. At some point, somebody will be talking about your company. And if you're not controlling the conversation, then they are. So my girlfriend in college's dad said this to me once. And again, I've never forgotten it. He said, you can either live life or let life live you. And I think if a great company will have their own media, because at some point somebody will be talking about you. And if you've been controlling the conversation the whole time, if they come out and say something, and if you're genuine about it, right? It's going to be really hard to convince somebody that what they're saying is true and what you've said is not true if you've been consistently saying the same thing over time and it's been proven to be true before. So my whole mantra around this is, you should do this. You should do this with somebody who understands the medium. And you should do it because you need to control the conversation around you. That means whether you as an individual or you as a small company or you as a large company. And I have these conversations with companies all the time, and the ones that get it, here's the thing. The ones that get it, and that could mean individuals or companies, they get it right away. And they say, yeah, let's do that together. Because it's not just throwing stuff out onto the internet. You have to have a sort of methodical way of telling that story and controlling your message. And if it's scattershot and if it's not consistent, right? One, it's not going to make any sense, but two, no one's going to listen. So then you're just throwing stuff out into the ether that no one cares about. And then not only you're not controlling your conversation, but you're wasting time and money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you also get the question, how long is an ideal business podcast?
I do.
Yeah, and
I
in
do.
your opinion, how long do you think it should be?
I don't know. How delicious does a great steak have to be?
Very delicious.
It's a silly question. It's just a silly question. In other words, people would say to me all the time, they're like, when I first started podcasting, like, an hour is too long. Like, too long for what?
Yeah, maybe for you, but not for me.
But if I'm running 10K, I'm happy to listen to, and I'm running 6-minute kilometers, that's an hour. Like, why is that too long? Have you ever had dinner with somebody and you only had an hour-long conversation? You're like, okay, gotta go 60 minutes. I'm out of here. Check, please. Or have your best dates and your best dinners been the one where, like, the waiters and waitresses are just like sweeping the floor around you, turning off the lights and hoping, like, when is Edric leaving, kind of thing. But that's your best date ever, right? And that's the best podcast ever too. It's like, I've actually had to stop guests from talking because the conversation was so good, but I was watching time and thinking, okay, it's been over an hour. We should probably stop this. But if the conversation's good and it's compelling and people are learning things, here's the thing. It should be just long enough so that people want to keep eavesdropping in on your private conversation. I don't think there's an optimal time. And I'm willing to have a conversation with anybody who says that there is.
That's a very, very interesting. Yeah, okay. I am conflicted when it comes to this because on the one hand, it depends on the objective, right, of what we want. If we're looking at the podcast purely as an art form, as pure as it can be, again, it's about the conversation. It should go on as long as we want it to go. But for a business podcast, for example, what the feedback that I've gotten before was that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, too short. Those are quick cuts. 1 hour is too long. 15 to 30 minutes seems to be the best because, we want to reach out to people and we just want that particular format for this and this and this. That's their idea, right? That's the idea that was that was actually presented before.
Right.
But somehow or rather, I really do prefer long form. If not, these podcasts would not last anything more than half an hour. And I love to go, an hour to an hour and a half because, okay, this question was actually posed to Joe Rogan before from Joe Rogan Experience, right?
Right.
I forgot, one guest asked him, he said, you were the first one, right, to do like 3-hour podcasts, 3-4 hour podcasts. And he asked, why 3 hours or 4 hours? He said, well, it's like a live show. Yeah, but why 3 hours? Because that's when people got to go pee. It's such a...
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I've how many episodes of Joe Rogan Experience have you seen?
My goodness, I started out when he was with with Red Band doing the Death Squad. Oh man, long ago.
I give you a ton of credit because I've seen none.
Oh, okay.
I've never watched one of his shows. Never. I mean, I've seen little bits and pieces, so I definitely know who he is.
Yeah.
I'm much happier to watch him call a UFC fight than I am to listen to a Joe Rogan podcast. But that's just me. Right?
It's not your cup of tea.
I just don't think I've learned anything interesting by listening to him talk to people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's his interview style, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's trying to accomplish.
Ah, okay. What I picked up from him, because humor seems to be one of my greater traits, according to individual strength thingy from VIA, right? So allegedly. Allegedly, right? Look, it's an internet test. I can't tell whether it's real or legit or anything, right? So it's like saying, hey, where'd you get your doctorate from? WebMD, right? Yeah, cool. So he goes and what I like about the way he interviews people is that he's able to always interject with small little nuggets of information And he's willing to play the dumb guy, even though he is quite well read. And of course, being a comedian helps to also bring levity to many situations as well. And that I quite liked. And this is, again, I'm trying to model in a certain way and learn certain energy, the kind of energy that he brings. And
Right.
how do we fuse business with entertainment together? You know,
Yeah.
and build that special brand of a podcast. And I guess this is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I don't find him funny at all.
Okay. So who's your favorite comedian then? Are you like a Monty Python kind of guy or what? The Life of Brian.
The Life of Brian was okay, but I kind of liked Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I used to watch it at night when I was a
Yep.
kid.
Yeah.
My favorite comedian,
I'll go get my coconuts.
yeah, the Knights Who Say Me. You didn't think I remembered that, did you?
Of course.
My favorite comedian, I don't know. It kind of rotates. Like I've found some really great comedians recently. I can't remember the guy's name. He was on Saturday Night Live, but he was just hilarious. I watched obviously Dave Chappelle's genius.
Oh,
I find that anything that comes out of Dave Chappelle's mouth is just hilarious. And if it's not hilarious, thought provoking. But I think that's kind of what stand-up comedy should be.
Yep.
And Seth Meyers did one of my favorite hours of all time a couple of years ago. And of course, Louis C.K. does some great stuff too.
Oh, I love Louis C.K. Unfortunately, he
So-
got that thing. But anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, he's back doing stand-up, right? I think,
Yeah.
whatever.
He's back
We can
doing
talk about that.
shows this year.
We can talk about that on a different cover, but Louis C.K. is brilliant and is a man who worked at his craft as well, right?
Yep.
And if you watch his life story, it's actually more interesting maybe than his comedy. But he took a lot of inspiration from George Carlin. And George Carlin, I won't say befriended him, but Carlin was also a pioneer, right? And whose style changed a lot over time if you followed George Carlin's career. But one of the things he told Louis C.K. was, yeah, you cannot recycle old material. Every year, if you're going to go on the road every year, you got to start from scratch.
Yep.
If you really want to be good at this, you got to be able to start from scratch. And your last show can be nothing like this show. And, comedians are always supposed to like start with their worst joke and end on their best joke. So you're just like dying.
Yep.
And Louis C.K. once said, and I think about this a lot actually when I'm constructing things, he said, I would write that 1 hour show and end on my best joke. And then I'd throw away the first 2/3. So I had a great opening. And then I'd build the next 2/3 to be better.
Right. He's constantly getting better at what he does. I'm not sure whether you've seen the interview that they had on HBO. I think it was Being Funny. It was him, Chris Rock, Jerry Seinfeld, and Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais.
So the four of them were actually having a conversation about this and actually deconstructing, what comedy was about, trying to do that. I mean, it was a bit of a... It doesn't always get technical and everything, but it was very, very interesting to just see their insights about the kinds of language that they chose to use, the thought process, right, and how they tackle certain things, and the sensitivity or insensitivity of word and text. So I think that this also really does apply to podcasting in this sense that
Absolutely.
There shouldn't be, okay, look, everybody has a voice. Everybody has the freedom to choose to say certain things. At the same time, it should not be something that is self-censored. The idea must come across, but I don't think that it should be something too controversial or radical either, right? But we can present these ideas and allow the public to I don't know, hopefully, whether it's educating them or just providing them perspective. But it's never about implementing my ideas or ideals on somebody else. That should never have been the case. Yeah.
No. My ideal is, at least on my show, or on all of my shows, is to talk as little as possible and to give a platform to the person who's trying to make a point or to get known or to introduce something groundbreaking or to inform the world about a viewpoint. I think it's important that people understand that in most cases, it's not what you say that matters, it's how you say it. And that if you're speaking to a wide audience, you should also treat that audience with respect. I think most people get that. There are very small pockets of people who just want to talk the way they want to talk, but their message gets lost anyway. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. if that's fair.
Very interesting. Yeah, at
Anyway.
the end of the day, it's the intent, your purpose, what you really want on the other side, or from the other side, or that goes to the other side. Well, I think we are running out of time, if I'm not wrong.